So this video is about three princes, um, Philip, Andrew and Harry. Well, I suppose that was in order of age, as in descending order of age. But it was Prince Philip's memorial service just a couple of days ago, because it marked just over a year since His Royal Highness Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, was called to his reward, to the great big polo park in the sky, or wherever he'd want to end up. Of course, his mortal remains are interred in the royal vault under St George's Chapel, Windsor. But that's the one bit of Windsor Castle the public are never allowed into, is the vault. Anyway, Her Majesty the Queen showed up, and she hadn't been seen in public for a few weeks beforehand. She'd had to miss the Commonwealth Day service earlier in March, and it's the only time she's missed that, I think, in her life, which tells you just how frail she is, and her infirmity is very severe. There are rumours that she's got senile dementia. I mean, she's 96 this month, so wouldn't be surprising if she's getting a case of that, and that she can scarcely walk. And so she was saving her strength, and she did not want to have to appear in public in a wheelchair. Apparently, at home, she uses the wheelchair quite a lot. But yes, she can walk, but it's not easy, not too far, tries not to do it too often. But anyway, so she fetched up at Westminster Abbey, which is this very ancient church in the heart of London. It was built in the 1040s by Edward the Confessor. You can see his chair there. She didn't go through the usual west door, because of course that's the main door, and at the east is the altar, as in facing towards Jerusalem. No, not directly angled towards Jerusalem, but Jerusalem's to the east of the British Isles. She came to the south door because it was a much shorter walk from there to her seat. And who was on her arm but her second son and third child, Prince Andrew, he of unhappy memory. The man's disgrace, there's a question mark over his reputation, to put it mildly. He recently paid out £12 million to someone he claims to have never met for something he did not do. Now, he's never done anything bad to me, but he won't pay me £12 million for some curious reason. Anyway, so although he's never been convicted of a crime, never been actually charged with the crime, he still doesn't look good. At the very least, he's guilty of some grave errors of judgment and tastelessness, and very poor choice in friends, some very imprudent associations, and not just with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, but various Kazakh businessmen and so on, and supposedly trying to hawk his influence and access to people, FaceTime he could get, shady businessmen with government ministers and so forth. So he shouldn't have been there. The best thing for the royal family is if there was a well-aimed heart attack sent by the Almighty towards Prince Andrew, or indeed if Prince Andrew could please just never show his face in public and never open his mouth in public. A lifelong period of reticence on his part would most warmly appreciated. That is the greatest service he could do at the House of Windsor, but he didn't do it. Now, presumably his mother asked him to be there, wanted him to be there. I mean, he'd been wiser to say no, or maybe, refuse if he couldn't talk her out of it. Because, okay, she's very frail and needed to be helped so she doesn't fall over. She's got a walking stick in one hand and her other arm around her son. They could have picked anybody else to do that, other members of the royal family, an equerry, a servant, a bodyguard, whoever. And apparently Prince Andrew is so deluded, he thinks there is some way back, could somehow get back into public life. And there was a thing going around on April Fool's Day that he'd be invited to be patron of the Girl Guides. Anyway, who didn't attend that? Who didn't attend the memorial service for Prince Philip was Prince Harry. Whereas Prince Harry should have been there. No, he's not duty bound to be there, honour bound perhaps. Prince Philip being his grandfather, in case you didn't know. And there's this hoo-ha with Prince Harry taking legal action against the British government, saying that they're unwilling to provide security detail for him if he revisits the United Kingdom. And he said, the taxpayer shan't be out of pocket, I will pay for every penny myself. And the UK government said, even so, no, we refuse to do that. We don't want to be setting a precedent. Celebrities might try and take advantages, and they would pay for it, and we don't do that. And he can apparently bring his own security team, but he said, no, that wouldn't be good enough because they wouldn't have access to intelligence about specific threats against him. So he's not shown up, which is him harumphing again. And I think Her Britannic Majesty's government was probably right to make that decision. You can't be half in and half out. You want to be out of the royal family, you're out of it. I mean, they're not actually taken away. They're not actually taking away the title prince, nor has he stopped using it or the title duke. If being part of the royal family is so offensive to him, why doesn't he ditch the title? Just become plain Mr. Harry Windsor. I think it was disrespectful to his grandmother, his late grandfather, not to be there. And he said he still supports the Queen and the family and blah, 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 but he's not even showing up because he would have been staying in Buckingham Palace at Windsor Castle and travelling with the others in the same car. So their security detail would have covered him as well. So I think it's him being a petulant infant yet again. So the presence of Prince Andrew, I just think, detracted from the decorum of the occasion. And there he was in the front row. I think it was a error of judgment on behalf of the Queen, to say the least. But as I say, she's 95 and possibly going a little bit soft, not being expressing any disrespect to her, but inevitably that happens. People become mentally obtunded at that sort of age, and the death of her spouse, of how many years was it? 74 years that marriage lasted, will have been a bitter blow. And I mean, apparently they were quite close. I say, well, of course they would after that so many decades marriage. Not really. People drift apart, even those who don't formally divorce. And they were together, I mean, almost every day for the last few decades. It's a very long time since any of them went on overnight trips without each other. So, and otherwise, it was a quite morally uplifting service, quite a fitting tribute to the man himself, the Queen's late husband. So, Prince Andrew, I mean, the royal family, they just said he's not going to be carrying out any duties again. No, he's not been proven guilty to have committed any crime, Prince Andrew. Yeah, as I've underscored that point. But he's certainly done things which were inadvisable, to say the least. There's a fantastic biography, I know, in the works about him by Andrew Lowney. Prince Andrew's never been the subject of a full-scale biography. He's the only one who royal protection officers, various courtier servants will say is verbally abusive, is bullying, and so on. All the others recognise that the measure of a gentleman is how decently you treat the lowliest of your staff. And Prince Andrew really is dim enough to think that he deserves to be royal. He's so entitled, as though he's like somehow a different species, superhuman, not mere Homo sapiens sapien, and to verbally abuse people, to be coruscatingly insulting about physical attributes and so on. And I think the others are sane enough to have their feet on the ground and realise that they are just people who, by accident of birth, have these great titles that they're not worthy of, and they try not to disgrace themselves, try not to bring shame upon the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth realms. But Prince Andrew really doesn't get that. He's the only one the staff ever complain about as being irascible, throwing tantrums and so on. So he's largely thought not to add lustre to the regal diadem. So he's a man with no decorum, and he's very unwise. That's enough about me, about the three princes. Please subscribe to the channel. Toodaloo, everyone.